Hi everybody, I'm here with Knitting for Love and my name is Barry and I'm here to show you what supplies you need to get started knitting. First of all, there are several different types of needles. We have a very long set of metal, as you can see. This is metal. And they're very hard to work for beginners with. I would not suggest this. I would suggest working with a set of needles that are bamboo. My favorite happens to be clover for wooden bamboo knitting needles. Size 7 to 8, preferably for beginners. And you would need a set of knitting needles to begin. The shorter, the better. As you can tell, my knitting needles are quite long. The metal ones are very long. The bamboo ones are the standard length. So you can get a size 7 or 8 anywhere from like Walmart, Joann's, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, any craft store in your neighborhood. Now you will also need a very nice set of scissors. I use these only for my yarn, my knitting. They do not cut paper or anything else. This is specifically for my work. As you get along, you're going to need also a measuring tape, it's just a standard measuring tape. So you can measure and gauge your equipment or whatever project you're working on. This I find very handy. It is a Sally Bates knitting gauge. And as you can see, the little holes, all these little holes, if you don't know what size knitting needle or crochet needle, if you're crocheting your size anymore, you can actually stick them in the little holes. And above, it will tell you what size knitting needle that particular hole represents, or a crochet hook. This is cut open so you can see and measure your work and gauge your work. That way you can make something like a sweater that would fit perfectly to you. So it will count how many rows it takes to make 2 inches and how many stitches it would take to make 2 inches. So you can do a little bit of math involved there. There are also things like double-sided knitting needles, which I have quite a few. I have metal, bamboo, and this is some kind of weird metal one. It's got like a coating on it. It's okay if you want to start off with something like that to make like socks or a very tiny project. I like to use these. I also like to use those for making cables. They're excellent for that. You will also need a darning needle. And this is a pretty big-eyed darning needle for yarn. So you can like sew up your projects when you're done. And also knitting needles come in circular. And these are for bigger projects that you might want to, can't be handled on these. So like you're making a blanket, you would want the longest circular needle you can come by. And of course, to get started knitting with all of this, you would need a ball of yarn. I happen to have on hand, I am working currently with this particular yarn making a poncho for myself. Hope all of this, oh wait, I am missing something. You will need stitch markers. They come in all different types and sizes, and for beginners, I like I like this one right here. This one right here. It's just a plastic circle, and you can buy a batch of these at Joann's or Michael's, whichever you prefer. They slip over the knitting needle, and you can, if you're working on a design, you can put this in there. But if you're like most people, I've seen people just cut a different color thread and put in their work just to show their pattern breaks. So this is a stitch marker. I like this other stitch marker because it has a little hook thing, and while I'm working I can just attach it to my work and I can tell what side is front and back, and it doesn't show through the other side. This is a stitch marker that's like a safety pin. It clips open and close. I particularly don't care for these. Depends on where you buy them. I bought mine from China and more than half of them broke. But anyhow, I hope you guys found this video informative, and I will be having more videos in the future. My next video will most likely be how to cast on and the different methods of casting on, and then following that the actual knit stitch, which I will go into teaching both knit and purl and several other stitches along the way as we all get more and more practice in our knitting. I am a self-taught knitter from 30 some odd years ago. So yeah, I teach knitting at my local church for a couple of years now. And I have been knitting for more than, I would say almost, I would be knitting for more than 40 years now. So this is, it's very enjoyable, it's very relaxing, and I hope this is informative. For those who don't know what kind of yarn to start off with, I would say start off with any worsted weight yarn. Red Heart has some good acrylic yarns that are worsted weight. Don't start off with something that has patterns and not that fancy yarn, the novelty yarn with the eyelashes and the fur and the pom-poms, because you need to see your work and you need to see what you're doing, and that will just make it more difficult for you to gauge what you're doing. And if you didn't drop a stitch or you didn't pick up a stitch correctly, that will make it just harder. So I would say just pick up any ball of yarn. Walmart sells this stuff. Red Heart is one of my favorites to use. Caron yarns. This is Patrons. I also spin my own yarn. So, you know, I'll see you in the next video with your knitting needles and your ball of yarn. And that's all you really need to get started with to practice anyway. And I would suggest making a scarf as your practice, because you can learn all the different stitches in a scarf, and then all of a sudden when you're done, you have this most fantastic scarf and it's unique to you. So bye now.